I'm Anastasia Chatzka. I'm a fashion designer, pattern maker, and sewing educator, and I'm so happy you're here sewing along with me today. I love bralettes so much. I wear one every single day before I go to bed. They're so comfy and cozy to sleep in. But you can also wear a bralette under a sheer shirt or just with a pair of jeans for fun out and about town. And the weather is warm, so bralette season is here, and what better way to celebrate than creating a stretch bralette? I've got all kinds of great tips and tricks for sewing knit fabric on your regular sewing machine. So today, I'm not going to be using a serger, I'm going to be using my regular sewing machine to sew this stretch bralette. So make sure you follow through to check out all the tips and tricks. So I designed a pattern for the stretch bralette. It comes in extra small through 2X. So size for everyone, or you can size up if you need to as well. It's a full color pattern with a layered PDF, so you can select what size you want to print, and you can download it at sewanastasia.com. Once you cut out your paper pattern and your fabric, your pieces should look something like this. You're gonna have your center front bodice, you're gonna have your side front bodice, and then this is going to be the back of the bodice for the bralette. So I've used a nice stretchy piece of fabric since this is a pattern for a stretch bralette. You're also gonna need a few little extras to make this bralette come together. You're going to need some straps, which you can create from scratch or you can buy them pre-made. As an addition, I bought some cute little bows to put right at the bottom of the straps. And then I also have some 3-inch stretch lace. You could also use 2-inch. This is gonna be for the bottom of the bralette under the bust. And last but not least, we're going to need some Picot Elastic. Any size will work great. Whatever matches your project will do just fine. So those are all the supplies you're going to need to create this stretch bralette. So let's sew it together. And it is gonna come together so fast, you're gonna wanna make so many of these. So the first thing we're gonna do is sew the seam right here. So this princess line seam on the front of the bodice here for the bralette. So we're gonna place our right sides together and line the seam up. So we're gonna sew this curved shape here on both sides. And I'm gonna be using the zigzag stitch when I sew this together on the regular sewing machine. The seam allowance on the pattern is 3/8 of an inch, so just make sure you have everything lined up and you're sewing 3/8 of an inch away from the edge. So we're gonna sew up the first seam. Make sure you're back stitching, and I have my zigzag stitch selected, and I have it positioned at 3/8 of an inch away from the edge. When you get to the end, back stitch and cut. And now we're gonna do the exact same thing to the other side. Uh-oh, my machine ate it. Don't let your machine eat your knit fabric. When you get to the end, back stitch and cut. So once you have it sewn up, it should look something like this. You can see it's starting to form the bust of the bralette. So you guys saw when the edge of the fabric got jammed into my sewing machine. So annoying, right? So how do you deal with that and how do you prevent that from happening? The easiest thing to do is when you start sewing, don't start at the very edge, start up a little bit, then backstitch and come forward. Another thing you could do is take a piece of tearaway or water-soluble interfacing and just go ahead and place it under your fabric when you're sewing and make sure it's behind it a little bit, and that'll give the machine something more to pull through, so that way it's not automatically just taking your knit and pulling it into the bed of the sewing machine. Working with knits can be a little bit tricky, especially on the home sewing machine, but the more you practice, the easier it is. So let's move on to the next step. The next step is going to be sewing this back band to the front of the bralette at the side seams. So I'm gonna place the back band on top of the front, right sides together, and make sure that the top of the band that's wider is at the top of your bralette. And we are just gonna sew up these side seams 3/8 of an inch, making sure that they line up. Okay, so let's sew up the sides here. back stitch. Cross your fingers, the machine doesn't need it. Sometimes just going a little slower will prevent it from getting sucked down into the machine as well. Back stitch at the end and cut. Now we're gonna do the same thing to the other side. Back stitch and cut. If you're enjoying this video so far, make sure you subscribe to Sew Anastasia and hit the notification bell so you know when all the new videos come out. And if you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for watching. Now let's get back to finishing up that bralette. So let's check out our side seams real quick. So you can see they look nice and complete on the outside, and then we've got our zigzag stitch here for the seam on the inside. Now what you want to do is grab your stretch lace for the bottom band, and now what I like to do to get a good fit for this is just take your stretch lace and wrap it around your body and see how tight you want it, because all stretch lace stretches differently. So what we want to do is pull and stretch this while we sew it onto the bralette, so that way when we wear it, it stays snugly under our bust. But the first thing we need to do is sew up these two ends here. So we're gonna place them right sides together and then just do a zigzag seam from top to bottom. So that way we end up with a circle of 3-inch knit lace. So now that we have our seam here sewn up, we want to place the lace on top of the bralette. So we don't want to place right sides together because we want to keep this nice pretty decorative edge up here. So we're going to place it on top. I am going to use pins for this, and I'm going to overlap it about 3/8 to a 1/2 inch, depending on where the scallop of the lace is. So now what you want to do is quarter it out. So we need to find out where the halfway point is of the lace band. And then we are gonna make sure that we stretch and pull that to the other side seam over here. Making sure you stretch it evenly is really important so you don't end up with too many gathers in one spot. And now when we sew this, we know exactly how much we need to stretch it out to sew it down. And when we sew this, we're just gonna zigzag right on top of the lace at the very edge. To summarize, I folded the lace in half and just made sure I pinned the halfway point at the other side seam. So I have my zigzag stitch set, and I'm gonna go ahead and just sew right at the edge of my lace, making sure that it's overlapped on the top of my bralette. Remove your pin when you get to it, and now what you need to do is stretch your lace while you sew it. So stretch the lace, hold it, and zigzag it down. And your goal is to stretch this piece of fabric into your lace. So you want the bralette to exactly fit at the halfway point of the lace. Back stitch when you get to where you started and cut. Sewing the lace like that on top of the fabric can take a little bit of practice. So if you have some scraps laying around, always make sure you practice on your scraps so that way you don't have to seam rip your final garment and accidentally rip a hole in it. That would be bad. But let's check out what we just did. So you can see we have our lace attached to the top of our bralette here. And so if you can imagine when we wear it and it stretches it out, it's gonna lay nice and flat across the body, and it's gonna hold us in snugly right under the bust. Next, we're gonna attach the Picot Elastic all the way around the neckline of the bralette. So now what you need to do is grab your Picot Elastic. So what we're gonna do is we're going to start adding this at the side seam of the garment because we have a seam here. And then when you sew this on first, you want the decorative edge of your Picot to be towards the inside of your garment, and you want the flat edge of the elastic to be at the raw edge of your bralette. And so first what we're gonna do is zigzag this down all the way around. And as you do it, just give it a little bit of stretch. You don't want to super stretch it, otherwise it's going to be really uncomfortable to wear. Just give it a little bit of a stretch. And then after we zigzag that down once, we're going to take it and we're going to flip it under. And then we are basically going to give it a top stitch with a zigzag. which means we are just gonna stitch right below the decorative picot edge here with the zigzag. A tip for starting your picot elastic is making sure that the raw edge of it is hanging off of your garment, so that way you don't end up with that raw edge showing on the outside of your garment when we flip it over. So now let's start it and sew it down. Remember to give it a slight pull. When you get to the tip, the point of the bralette, just make sure you're working your way around it very carefully, just slightly changing the direction of it. And then when you get back to where you started, again, make sure that your elastic is coming off of the project. Back stitch and cut. Now you can cut off the extra elastic. And now what we're gonna do is flip it over so that the elastic is under the garment and just your little decorative edge is showing. And now we're gonna top stitch it down with the zigzag stitch. Back stitch and cut when your stitches overlap. The picot elastic is looking awesome, so let's take a look at it. And just think, we didn't even use a serger to put this on, we used our regular sewing machine. So you can see how nice the picot elastic looks all the way around the bralette, and it stretches. There's no popping of threads here because we used a zigzag stitch. Now grab your straps and let's attach. So I have some pre-made straps here. If yours aren't pre-made, go ahead and add the slides and the rings to them. And now what we're gonna do is take the strap, we're gonna place it under the bralette, right where the princess line seam is here, about a ½ inch overlapping. And then what we're gonna do is zigzag it down right here. And then for the back, we wanna see where the princess line seam is hitting it. And then we wanna make sure we put that under the bralette, and then we're gonna zigzag down that as well. So I'm gonna zigzag down right where the strap is. I like to go over it a couple times just to make sure it's nice and secure. Basically like we're creating a little bar tack. Nice and secure. And then we're just gonna do the same thing to the 3 other points. Now that the straps are on, our bralette is almost complete. We just need to glue on our little bows and then it's gonna be adorable and we can try it on. Look at how cute this bralette is. I just love it. I love these little bows on here. It is just such a nice little addition. We have that beautiful picot edged elastic going all the way around the neckline. We have our beautiful scalloped pink stretch lace at the bottom of it. And you can see how snug and fitted this is out of the stretch fabric now that it's on the dress form. Let's take a look at the back as well. So we've got the side looking beautiful, and we've got the back with our straps, our picot elastic, our zigzag top stitch, our zigzag stretch lace. This bralette is beautiful. It is store quality. And it looks great on. How fun! This is super comfortable and super versatile. You can wear it just about anywhere. Out to the beach, wear it to bed, lounging around the house, layer it under a sheer dress, or maybe you have one of those open back dresses and you don't want to go braless. You can make a cute bralette that matches for it. I just love making stretch bralettes. I have made so many of these. I love making them to match all my outfits as well. And summer's here, so you know I'll be making tons of them this year. So make sure you download the pattern at sewinganastasia.com and sew along so you can make yourself some fun stretch bralettes. Thanks so much for watching Sewing Anastasia today and learning how to sew a stretch bralette on your regular sewing machine. So cool, right? If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, give it some applause, and leave a comment down below. I'd love to know what you thought about it, and do you wear stretch bralettes, or what are your favorite kind of bralettes to wear? I would love to make some more bralette patterns, so let me know in the comments down below. And if you're not already a follower of Sewing Anastasia, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you know when all the new videos come out. I put multiple videos out every single week. So much fun sewing content all the time. And if you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for watching Sewing Anastasia. And don't forget, I also have Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and TikTok, and all those other social media websites. So make sure you check those out so that way we can stay connected and creative together. Thanks so much for watching. Bye!